we're rolling.
It is a Monday morning mailbag on a Tuesday afternoon kind of day, and oh boy, buddy, all sorts of positive comments to mull through today, hey?
Man, I'm like envious of everybody that doesn't do a Blue Jays podcast right now. I can just choose to not participate in the Blue Jays at the moment. Not an option for us.
Just go from 100% dialed in back to a casual fan just to like preserve your mental well-being, you know?
Exactly.
Well, we do have a ton of comments to get to. We do really appreciate all the interaction from all of you. Of course, you can get a hold of us on Twitter at Walk-Off Podcast. You can do the same on Instagram, the Walk-Off Podcast. And what we've found is that a lot of our audio listeners, that's how you kind of get a hold of us, is by DMing us. For those of you who maybe aren't on the YouTube and placing your comments right there under the videos. Of course, we mull through those as well. Discord is a great place to have your voice heard. You can sign up for that for free. Link in the show notes. Patreon. Always appreciate the support from everyone who is involved in our Patreon. We do movie reviews. We do series previews. We give you access to all of our interviews and so on and so forth. Early access. And I know that Adam has the list of names here. He might not, but
I do, but I thought we were going to do all the social media and all that stuff at the end of the shows. But okay, patreon.com/walkoffpodcast. Thank you to David, Avraham, Michael, Sarah, John, Simon, Rashid, Joshua, Jeremy, Ian, Dunedin, Bob, John, Wyatt, and Patrick.
Well, we could have done Patreon at the end, I guess. My apologies. I thought we'd start it with how they could get a hold of us, but that's fine. We did talk about this.
That's all right.
I guess I don't listen very well.
It's all good, my friend. Mailbag starts with you, actually. Comment from the little group chat we have with Hey Commie. This came at about 6:45 last night. I think it was after Bichette fell onto his butt throwing home. And your comment was the 2023, and sorry, my impression of this, I'm picturing it boomed through the PA system.
yeah, okay. That's how I meant
That's
it.
how I read it. So the 2023 second baseman for your Toronto Blue Jays, Bichette.
Yes.
And Joel agreed. Absolutely. Same move the Yankees made with Gleyber Torres. Hey, Commie says.
Listen, Bichette was called up. Bichette was called up at 21 years old. He had a weird start to his major league career, right? Called up midway through 2019. Then you had the shortened 2020 season. 2021, he definitely seemed to shore up his defense at shortstop in the final 6 weeks of the season. But you got to think that this front office, the rope for Bichette as a shortstop has got to be getting shorter.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just watching this highlight here from the first inning. Weird, like, it's the play that was like a fly ball down the right field line over Vladdy's head, and he went back for it. By the way, I was impressed with Vladdy's range on that. He didn't come up with it.
Yes.
So it drops in there. I don't know if it was Mountcastle or who it was, but rounds first, heads into two, and Vladdy comes up with a throw that, like, maybe it was a short hop and a little bit hard for Bichette to come up with, but, like, it went right past him. Like, I don't know, man. Like, that doesn't go down as an error, but
here's the truth of the matter, in my opinion, anyways. And we talked about this a little bit on Long Toss on Sunday. Bichette is average at offense this season and below average at defense. So if you're going to have a guy who is ripping the cover off the ball at shortstop, I'm all for it if he's a little bit below average defensively. But that's not Bichette. It's not Bichette in 2022. Yes, it was in 2021. There is the potential for Bichette to still be dominant when it comes to the offensive side of the game. But I think it's almost at the point where it might be a service. You might be doing him a favor in moving him to a position that doesn't require the same amount of mental. I guess the word I'm looking for is the attention to detail, right? I'm not saying second base is an easy position to play by any means, and I'm not trying to make it seem like there is an easy position in baseball. However, shortstop is one of the more difficult positions, along with center field, in all of Major League Baseball. It's up there with playing catcher, right? Like there's three really tough positions. And obviously, you can excel at every position and show your defensive prowess. It doesn't matter where you are on the diamond. But I think moving Bo from shortstop to second is probably something we see this front office consider in the 2023 season. And they may even consider going out and getting a shortstop in free agency. We'll see what happens.
Bo has been frustrating to watch for most of this season. I still think he can be a capable shortstop in this league, but he is sure struggling right now, and it's hard to watch. I know, like, there was that play where runner on second and third, infield in, right? Because there's less than 2 outs, hit right at him, and he like double clutches it before the throw home. Runner's safe. There was a pickoff attempt at second base by Yusei Kikuchi that went off Bo's glove and into left field.
That was a tough play, too. Watching that happen, watching the runners advance, then watching Kikuchi get that ground ball he needed that would have been a double play. And then, of course, it scored a runner, and then he fell apart in true Kikuchi fashion.
It was a tough game, man. It was a tough game. All right, next comment comes in from Taco Time. Says, this team is hard to watch. I turned the game on this evening late. Did not really care. Pop on, 6 runs in the 4th inning. Power off. Saved me time to clean up the backyard. It's tough to watch right now.
I had a tweet that actually wound up getting quite a few likes because I think it just related to this fan base pretty well. And it was just, there's ebbs and flows to every 162 game season in baseball. And then what the Blue Jays heard was get 10 games above 500 in April and then continue to lose 8 out of every 10 or win 8 out of every 10 the rest of the way, right? Like, it's just, this is the Jose Barrios of teams. Like, it's just so inconsistent. And when they're hot, they're hot. When they're not, they're not. And as a fan, that is very difficult to watch.
Very difficult to watch. I mean, nothing makes you forget about these struggles, though, like a nice 8 or 9 game winning streak. So,
honestly, think about that. If the Blue Jays win these next 2 games against Baltimore and take 3 or 4 against the Yankees, like, they're in a completely different situation again. With 40 games left, all of a sudden they really are looking good. But it's tough to believe that's something they can do after watching them play the last 7 games.
2 more against the Orioles, 4 in New York, and then 3 in Fenway. Our last trip to Fenway was very fun. We all remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is going to be a different Boston team, though. This is going to be a lot of pride going on in that clubhouse after getting embarrassed at home last time the Jays were in town.
As they play spoiler, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, it's all the motivation a guy needs sometimes. But beyond that, we have our softest stretch the rest of the way, which is 3 against LA Angels, 3 against the Cubs, and 3 against the Pirates.
Mm-hmm.
That is a 9-game stretch the Blue Jays cannot afford to set games on fire in. We need probably 8 of those 9 games to be wins. All right.
Man, this wild card race is insane. Like, you look at this wild card race, and what is wild about it, too, is how, other than the AL Central, let's put the AL Central aside.
Sure.
But the AL West and the AL East, the winners of the division have been decided since, what, late May?
Yeah.
Like, I know I saw a tweet yesterday from Andrew Stoughton, friend of the show, and he had retweeted a Yankees fan tweet that had broke down the Yankees play since the All-Star break, which has been abysmal. They have yet to win a series. They have been absolutely brutal. And his retweet just read, "I'm sure the Jays gained a bunch of games." And all they've gained is half a game since the All-Star break, despite the Yankees being in the biggest tailspin of their season. It's frustrating.
Well, yeah, that's the frustrating thing, right? Like dating back to that series against Seattle, they lost 2 or 3 against Seattle, got swept by the Cardinals, lost 2 or 3 against Seattle, 2 or 3 against Boston, lost again last night against Tampa Bay. We could be like 5 games back of the Yankees right now, heading into a 4-game series. Like,
they wouldn't even had to have played that good.
I know. Just don't play that bad.
Like, just don't play that bad. Don't lose 8 out of your last 11 games. Like,
all right. Brian Neufeld says Toronto not making the playoffs. You heard it here first. What are your thoughts on that? Coming out of the All-Star break, what they have? 96% chance is what Vegas was giving them making the playoffs. Yeah. You still feel like a 96% chance the Blue Jays make the playoffs?
Absolutely not. I do not feel confident in this team at all. That said, look at the standings. Look at the standings. Like, they're right there.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that's the optimism take. They're right there.
I mean, this is the thing. The Jays have played absolutely terrible, and the Rays have done nothing to put pressure on them. The Rays have continued to struggle. Not that the Rays aren't right there with them. The Mariners haven't run away with this thing. The Mariners could have run away with this thing. The Mariners have struggled since the All-Star break. The only team to really make hay has been these Baltimore Orioles, who everyone just keeps waiting for the bottom to fall out. And frick, we're at almost 45 games left, and the bottom does not seem to want to fall out of these guys. So
I don't know. It just feels rough right now because these these series that we're having against other wild card teams, the Minnesota Twins, the Baltimore Orioles, the Tampa Bay Rays, we are not showing up for those series. August 2nd, August 3rd, 2-game series with Tampa, we split it. August 4th through 7th, we had a 4-game series with the Twins. We won 2, we lost 2. Obviously, we know how that series against Baltimore went, losing both of those games before the third one was rained out. Then against the Cleveland Guardians, we lost 2 out of 3. And we've lost again to the Orioles. It just feels like we need to start beating these teams that we are competing with for a playoff spot.
Which is insane when you look at the standings, because the Blue Jays still hold the first wild card spot. Half a game back is the Seattle Mariners. And the Mariners have had the opportunity to pass the Jays about half a dozen times in the last week. I mean, Tampa Bay is a game back of the Jays in that final wild card spot. Baltimore is a game and a half back. 2.5 back, I guess. But still, like, man, it is a tight race in here right now. Both Minnesota and Chicago are 2 games back of a wild card spot. The Guardians are so impressive, dude.
It's gonna be a dogfight right to the end, man.
We're 9 games above 500 right now. This team has been 9 to 10 games above 500 since April. It is wild to me, the yo-yo trip that they have put this fan base through. But you said it off the top, buddy. I wish it's moments like right now where I wish we weren't doing a Blue Jays podcast 5 times a week.
It's wearing on me.
Yes.
Right, next comment comes in from Mark Kaufman. Says, for the walk-off tomorrow, can you guys please give your opinions on this Jays team that are 29-38 versus teams above 500 and 32-14 versus teams below 500?
I mean, you say those stats, and it's troublesome, obviously. The Jays have done what they've had to do against teams below 500, which is make hay, beat the crap out of them. I mean, they're what was it, 32-14? You said.
Well, yeah, I think that comment was from yesterday or the day before. So as of today, they're 30-41 versus teams above 500. It's, I mean, pretty similar for every wild card team. Like the Mariners are the best against teams over 500. They're 31-32, so they're still below 500. The Rays 33-36, couple games below 500 against good teams. Baltimore 31-37. The Twins 30-35. The White Sox 32-37. That's just the way the math is working out right now. There's not a whole bunch of teams that have winning records against other teams with winning records. Like it is just. I don't
truly
think
what
there's too much to read into there.
I would agree, and truly what this expanded playoffs has done, it has created the middle glob, if you will. And the middle glob are good ball teams whenever they're playing the worst teams or each other. They kind of come out 50-50. But there's just an upper echelon of teams, and we all know who they are. It's the Yankees, it's the Astros, it's the Dodgers, it's the Padres, it's the Mets. Right? Like, these are the teams that are just a step above everybody else. And when the Jays play those teams, when the Twins play those teams, when the Brewers play those teams, they lose.
Here's something to help put your mind at ease. The Atlanta Braves, 71 wins, okay? They're probably one of the top 5 or 6 teams in this league. Their record versus teams with a record over 500 is 25-27. So they have 45 of their 71 wins come against teams with a losing record. You got to take care of business against the bad teams, right? Like that's
100%
what it shows us, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's all well and good that the Dodgers have 37 wins. Sorry, the Dodgers are 37-17 versus teams with a winning record. That's very impressive.
Yes, it is.
But they have 80 wins. So 43 of their wins, over 50%, come against bad teams. That's the takeaway. Like,
yes. I mean, is it disconcerting that the Blue Jays have lost 11 games below 500 to teams that win more than 50% of their games? Yeah, of course it is. But it's really not that glaring of a stat when you take a look at all of the other middling teams, if you will, all the other wild card contending teams.
Well, and then a game versus a team over 500 they're not all created equal, right? Sometimes you play the Yankees when they're on a 120 win pace. That counts the exact same versus
the Yankees right now,
or playing the Padres right now, or
yes.
Like go on and on. So there is a difference between, I don't know. It's an oversimplified stat. It is interesting to point out, and we have looked at it in the past, but I don't think it's necessarily the biggest cause for concern. We have lots of causes for concern. I don't think that's the number one. All right. Andrew Murphy says Tiedemann call-up would be bold in September, but the Jays are in press the panic button mode. Are they not? What are your thoughts? Ricky Tiedemann getting called up to this Blue Jays team in September.
I mean, realistically, there's absolutely zero chance. There's zero chance. We can go back throughout the history of this front office and the way that they have treated their top prospects. This is not happening to a 19-year-old kid who started the season in the Florida State League. This is a kid who started in low A, made his way up to Vancouver, dominated with the Canadians, and finally got a call up to Double A New Hampshire. At 19 years old, as dominant as he has been, you do not want to make this move, especially considering for the first time in his career, he's being hit. He's not being hit hard, but he is being hit with the Fisher Cats. Let him continue to develop. Let him continue to find his footing as a pro ball player. And I think you move him up to AAA next year, which is still incredibly quick for how fast they're moving along this guy's development. Do you have a different take, Adam? Like,
No.
at 19?
I mean, I agree with you completely. I think are the Jays in panic mode. It feels like it, but also this front office isn't the panic mode. Like, I don't think they have a panic button in their war room.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking at how they handled the trade deadline, doesn't feel like this is a front office who has any interest in saying, well, we better do something like this. They're not pushing their chips in and saying we got to do something to go for it here. This feels very much like, no, we'll re-roll the dice for next year and hopefully things go better. But I cannot see them jeopardizing the development of Ricky Tiedemann, one of their top prospects, this season. I just don't see it happening. Am I excited to see him in a Blue Jays uniform? Yeah, absolutely. But we're probably at least 12 months away from that.
Another thing to keep in mind, too, with these September call-ups. Normally, or I shouldn't say normally, but previously, in the past collective bargaining agreements, before the new CBA was put into effect April 8th of this season, you got to expand your roster to the full 40-man roster. There were literally guys on your team that people hadn't even heard of. That's how deep the prospects were in getting call-ups in previous years. This year, the roster expands from 26 to 28. So we're not going to see Ricky Tiedemann. What we're going to see is probably Gabriel Moreno and some scrap that Ross Atkins has picked off of the waiver wire as some depth for this bullpen or starting rotation that they can throw at the back end of the starting rotation, perhaps, or even in the bullpen, right? I mean, you hear all this talk of Ken Giles and the fact that the Blue Jays have kicked the can on him and are one of the, I think Ben Nicholson-Smith tweeted that there were 4 interested teams and the Blue Jays were one of those 4.
Well, you know, when Sergio Romo doesn't work out, what's the next best thing, right?
That's
Ken
right.
Giles. All right.
Who was great with this team before Tommy John surgery, but, I mean, he was just released by the next closest team to your team, right? The contending Seattle Mariners, so seems pretty desperate if they grab him.
All right, next one comes in from our Discord, from the pod tab on Discord. So I don't know what this is referencing. Maybe you could fill me in. But Mr. Krister says, I'm getting pretty old, but I could have sworn they scored 4 runs that series versus the Guardians. I looked into it.
Okay.
They did, in fact, score 4 runs, so what's happening here?
Well, that was my fault. I, at the beginning of Long Toss, made a big deal out of how the Blue Jays only scored 3 runs the whole series and still managed to win one. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. How terrible is a team to only score 3 runs in 3 games? Correction, 4 runs.
Much more respectable.
But good catch, Mr. Krister.
Fair enough. Thank you for that one. Next one comes in from Discord as well. Zero Day says, going to be real interesting this offseason to see who they sign long-term and for how much. Bo especially.
This offseason is going to be wild, in my opinion. And I mean, we're going to need to hold on to our hats and wait and see what happens here. But especially if this team doesn't get out of that first wild card series, if this team somehow manages to not get into a wild card spot or is eliminated in that first round, I think this is going to be a completely different looking Blue Jays team come the 2023 season here.
Well, yeah,
for a few reasons.
We're going to have Gleyber Torres. Not Gleyber Torres. We're going to have Chris Woodward as our new manager.
I mean, let's start with that. If this team doesn't make the playoffs this year, I think it is pretty safe to say that
right?
not just John Schneider. I think they clean house. I think we watch Guillermo Martinez, their hitting coach, go. I think we watch Dave Hudgens leave. I think we see Pete Walker replaced. I think we watch a new manager come in. I think we watch them bring their guys in and start over. But that isn't even the beginning of what this team is going to go through, because there's a lot of choices for this front office to make. Teoscar Hernandez is in his final year of his contract. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. is in the final year of his contract. You've got 3 catchers who are going to demand playing time, one of which needs to be at DH.
I was going to say, Kirk is only demanding 50% playing time.
No, but that's the thing, right? Is that Alejandro Kirk, you want his bat in the lineup, so you got to DH him 50% of the time. On top of that, George Springer consistently shows that his body is not what it used to be and is going to need to be managed. I don't think we're going to see him in center field anymore. I think he'll be moved to right field, where it's not quite the same sort of beating on your body. There's just so much less ground to cover in right field than center field.
All right, we're gonna jump ahead a little bit while sticking with this comment, but this just ties in perfectly, so we'll get to it now. So from Brittany on Instagram said, just curious if you guys read last night's Shai Davidi article on Sportsnet. Wanted to get your thoughts on George Springer's comments about playing through pain. So from last night, here's the quote. Well, let's throw it up on the screen share for the YouTubers here. Sure, the Toronto Blue Jays center fielder feels better than he did a couple of weeks back when every throw and swing seemed to leave him in agony, but he's still talking about, quote, managing the problem and using the phrase, it is what it is, often enough that it's clear the issue is very much not behind him. Now, the quote from George Springer is, I've got to do a better job of hiding it. Springer said, that's my goal, just go out there and play. It doesn't feel good, but there's nobody on the field at this point on either side that actually feels good. So, oh well.
Think about what he just said there.
His
goal for the rest of the season is to grimace less.
Yeah, that's the strategy, is grimace less. I mean, look, first of all, I want to just start off by saying George Springer playing through pain, and he gives it 100% whether you want him to or not, and that is an admirable quality, and I think great leadership. Yes. There's 48 games left this season. I want to put a crystal ball out to you. Okay, and for anybody listening, weigh in on this. 48 games left if you have 2 options, and I know it's not this simple. I don't want to pick that apart. But if the options are 48 games, George is a DH, and he's productive, and he's healthy enough to play all 48 games, 3 to 4 at-bats per game as our DH into the playoffs. Or we attempt to play him in the outfield half the time, right field, let's just say, or center field, whatever, and DH him the other half of the time. But there ends up being another IL stint involved, or he can't finish the season. Which would you rather, Scott? Try and see him in the outfield a little bit, get that defensive ability of his, or just say fuck it and only have him hit?
Okay, so there is a lot to unpack here. It kind of reminds me of something that our good friend of the show, Garth Yorgi, mentioned on Long Toss. And he's like, one thing that this coaching staff could do is put out the best lineup every single game. And we are kind of at that point. We were talking about innings being managed with Manoah. And one of the things that the panel kind of agreed on was that at this point in the season, if you actually want to make the playoffs, we can't take the foot off the gas for Alek Manoah. We can't take the foot off the gas for George Springer. Now, things get muddy with George Springer because if you are going to DH him 48 games, the remainder of the season, where the hell do you put Alejandro Kirk? Because Kirky is a great little catcher, but
He's one of our best bats.
He's one of our best bats, but he has already shown that Danny Jansen manages this starting rotation better than he does. For a lot of reasons. Danny Jansen has 5 years of big league experience. You would hope that he would be more advanced when it comes.
Even in a world where Danny Jansen is unavailable, whether it's for the birth of his children or for bad tacos or for whatever reason, Alejandro Kirk plays better when he's not wearing the catcher's gear every single day.
Yeah.
But the thought of just not having Kirk in the lineup because there's no spot for him, for me, again, just goes to the reason of like why we need to get rid of him.
And I love Alejandro Kirk.
I love him too, but like he needs to go to a team where they can fit him in, and I don't think we can fit him in. We're committed to George for 4 more years. I mean, bone chips in the elbow. Can it just be cured up by a surgery in the off season? I mean, sure, but there's probably something else waiting around the corner too. I don't know, man. It's
the roster construction of this team is such that it's circled around George Springer.
Yep.
It's built around George. It's not built around Kirk, and we're seeing that. This again goes back to the offseason. There is some real crazy stuff that I think we're going to watch happen.
Bichette playing second base next year?
I think that's an option. Bichette might not be on this team next year. I think we're going to see some major stuff, man. And I mean, let's get into, I know that there's another comment here that works really well with just kind of moving along here. At John Olerud's helmet there.
This is the last one we've got for today.
Okay.
So, John Olerud's helmet, great name by the way, on Twitter, DM'd us and said, "Hey guys, love the show. Was hoping you could get me on mailbag tomorrow after another brutal start from Kikuchi. What the hell can this team do? Do you think they're going to keep trotting him out there?"
So, a few things to talk about there. Number one, Kikuchi is sitting at a 7 ERA in the last 3 starts he's made in August. That is not going to do the trick. It also reminds me of a meme in the meme section of our Discord. The Dan
My favorite
Cook
section.
Yes, me too. Dan Cook posted it. And it just said, Atkins trying to fix this team, and then was a photo of a man digging in a garbage can. Because that is what you're going to need to do to fix this team. We already brought up Ken Giles, right? So to try and fix this team in August after the trade deadline, it's impossible. And I think that's one of the most frustrating things about where this team sits right now, is there's nothing that can be done about the lack of pitching depth or the holes in this starting rotation until the offseason. And this is the second year in a row that the bullpen has bitten this front office in the ass. Strike 3, we're playing baseball. You can't allow it to happen a third year in a row. How do they go about fixing the bullpen? Well, I think we've already seen depth is a big frickin' thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with everything you're saying.
The biggest Achilles heel of this team, and when we first addressed it in April, it was an afterthought. It was just something we were throwing out there because we needed to talk something that was a negative with this team. We were all hyped up. The whole fan base was like, this is the year 2022. The movie is coming. We already watched the trailer, right, Vladdy? But we brought up the insular depth in AAA wasn't there. Mm-hmm. If anything happened to the starting rotation, there wasn't guys who could just come up and fill in for a spot start here or there. And when I say fill in, I mean pitch 5 innings and only give up 3 runs. That didn't exist. We had Casey Lawrence. Max Castillo was okay here and there until they traded him. So this front office better do a much better job of making sure that that is something that is addressed come the off season. I think they need a legit starter to replace Kikuchi. And then if Kikuchi, I mean, he's under contract for the next 2 years. If Kikuchi forces his way into the starting rotation, wonderful, lovely. That's how I want to see this go down. But there better not be a spot saved for Yusei Kikuchi in this 2023 starting rotation.
Okay, hypothetically, we're looking at the offseason. There's a few people that could be removed from this team. Still like them, but I'm just going to throw out Bichette's name because I feel like of anybody on our team that is movable, like we're not moving Vladdy this offseason.
No.
Right.
Let's start with the unmovable. Let's start with the core that is going to be this team going forward. I think it's safe to say Jose Barrios, right?
Yeah, Jose Barrios, Alec Manoah,
Gosman.
Those three are stable in our rotation. Vladdy, George Springer, Matt Chapman is here next year for sure, and I'm thinking more and more every day that he's beyond that.
Yeah,
our third baseman. Otherwise,
is there anyone else? Everyone else is touchable, right?
Yeah, everyone else is touchable. I mean, the asterisk is, well, you'd have to sure get a haul back, but like, of course, so let's not even have that argument, right? So Bichette could be gone. Lourdes, Teoscar could be gone. All three of our catchers, I think we should have our ears open to for the right price. I mean, what else is there to say other than, again, hypothetically, let's just talk Bichette because it's the biggest name and there's probably like the potential for the biggest haul in return. Maybe you could argue Alejandro Kirk, but I still think the return on Bichette is bigger. So I don't want to get into the speculation of like, well, what would Bichette fetch in a trade?
No.
That's too much speculation. But what we can do is, would you rather ship Bichette and get the maximum haul in return, or would you rather bundle him with a dead salary contract like a Yusei Kikuchi and get a more modest return?
I don't. It's not my money. I don't give a shit about Yusei Kikuchi's money. I think Rogers needs to eat that, and we get as much as we can for Bichette.
Okay, no, I like it. I don't disagree with you. I think as long as we're not a luxury tax team, we shouldn't be worried about money management. Now, if we were right up to the salary tax, the luxury tax threshold, then I think you do got to get creative. Like when the Red Sox got rid of Mookie Betts and they partner in David Price, and it's like you just take this fucking albatross of a contract so that we have a little flexibility to rebuild our team. We're not there. We are not that close to the luxury tax. So I think you're right. I think we just eat the Yusei Kikuchi and still go out and spend and say, Justin Verlander, here's $70 million to pitch for us for the next 2 seasons.
I'm not advocating, by the way, for Bichette to be traded or Alejandro Kirk or Teoscar Hernandez. However, the way that this roster is constructed needs to be fixed. There's a few things that this front office has really fucked up grandly when it comes to the way you can put this lineup out there every single day. Mm-hmm. I think the big thing that needs to be addressed is we need to be a team that is prepared to DH George Springer 100 of 162 games. Maybe we can lower that to 60, but I think it needs to be stated that the DH spot is unavailable for almost at least a third to 2/3 of a season.
Yeah, and I think George Springer needs to play corner outfield. I think it just anything we can do to lighten his workload, we need to do. I'm sad to say about a 31-year-old or 30-year-old player, but need him in the lineup. So yeah, if he's DHing a third of the time and he's a corner outfielder, I think Teoscar Hernandez isn't playing center field. So for me, Teoscar's gone and we bring in a left-handed bat, and that's where we start. But a lot of moves to be made. I don't think it's a rebuild, but it is definitely a retooling. And there's
they need
massive
to reevaluate
for sure.
Yes. And I mean, this is something that Blue Jays fans us older Blue Jays fans, anyways, remember happening in 1991, right? Lloyd Mosby and Tony Fernandez were traded for Joe Carter and Roberto Alomar, and I think that's the type of shakeup we're going to see. I don't know exactly where the pieces land. I don't know how this front office goes about doing it. I'm very thankful that I'm not the general manager of this team needing to make these decisions, but there are some big-time decisions that need to be made. George Springer has 3 more years on his contract after this season. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has 3 more years of control after this season. Alek Manoah has 5 more years of control after this season. Jose Barrios, 6 more years. Kevin Gausman, 4 more years. Like, we have years left of this core, but they got to figure something out ASAP. I'm not writing this season off, by the way, but this is where we're at.
It's going to be crazy to see Aaron Judge in a Blue Jays uniform next year. It's too bad he's not a left-handed batter. I'd say go for it.
Yeah.
All right. That's all we got for today. Thank you, Scott. Thank you for everybody for getting your comments in. Thank you for the likes, the comments, the subscribes. Thank you for the independent contributions we've had to our computer fund. That continues to grow every single day. We are inching closer and closer to a improved, enhanced computer setup, which will allow us
to live stream
more content more often. Hopefully the quality goes up, but I mean, it's still going to be me and Scott, so we can't expect too much better quality, but the quantity could improve. So
yeah, the quantity could improve.
We'll start there. All right. Thanks, Scott. Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
I'm going to be in Vancouver playing Comedy After Dark, it's called. It's going to be at 117 Pender Street in downtown Vancouver. Come check it out. I got shows Wednesday through Sunday.
All right. Catch you Friday morning?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll see
Friday
you Friday
morning.
Okay,
All right,
cheers.
buddy. Cheers.